Hey guys, it's Will here, welcome back to the channel. Tonight was going to bring you the bat rep of my 6th game in the Iron Hammer League, so 6th and final game. I've bat repped the last 5, so was really hoping to do the last one, but unfortunately I left my microphone at home, so instead what I've done is a stills only bat rep, so it's going to be stills of the game and me talking over it. So hopefully you guys still find this interesting. You know, if this type of bat rep is something you'd be interested in seeing more of, then let me know. But hopefully for my next game, normal service on bat reps should be resumed. But anyway, yeah, so 6th and final game, really just looking for the consolation victories and some experience against some strong opponents here, because I'm already 4-1 down in terms of games, so not going to really place very well at all. And my opponent tonight, Craig, is a really good player. He's I think at the point we went into this game he was 4-0, so he's unbeaten so far in the league. I think it was 5-0, so yeah, he is like in serious contention for potentially winning the whole thing. So yeah, going to be a tough game, and he's brought a seriously strong list. Take a look at that in just a moment. But yeah, for my list, standard Eldar army, so let's take a look at that. As with all the other games I've played in the league, this is going to be a 2,000 point battle, and my force is pretty standard for me, knowing that I was up against Craig, who has a tendency to run Magnus and a knight and other crazy stuff. I did bring quite a bit of anti-tank, so I've got a spearhead and a battalion tonight. And yeah, so starting off with the spearhead, I've got my Farseer on a jet bike, and he's got the Spirit Stone of Anathlan, a singing spear, Doom and Fortune as his powers, and Natural Leader as his warlord trait. And then I've got 2 units of Dark Reapers, both 5 strong. One of the Exarchs has a Reaper launcher and the other has a Tempest launcher. And then that spearhead finishes off with a Falcon Grav tank with a Bright Lance. For the battalion, I've got a Warlock and a Spirit Seer leading those. Warlock has Jinx Protect, Spirit Seer has Enhanced Drain, I think it was, the one that gives me bonuses to hit in melee, or minuses to hit in melee, because I thought that would work quite nicely with the Shining Spears, and knowing that with most of his damage either being psychic, conceal reveal wasn't going to be as big a deal, psychic or melee, you know, he had very little shooting. As for the rest of it, I've got my 3 troops choices of Dire Avengers, 2 squads of 6, 1 of 10. Then I've got the Fire Dragons, the Wraith Guard, so yeah, plenty of anti-big stuff here. And then 5 units of Wind Riders and my 8 strong unit of Shining Spears. So a pretty sort of standard list for me, edging a bit towards anti-armor and anti-big stuff. Okay, so here's Craig's mixed chaos army. Sends his apologies for the fact that a couple of the demon princes aren't quite finished, but to be honest, the rest of the army looks gorgeous, so it really, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a nice army. He's got Supreme Command detachment of Thousand Sons, so that is Magnus the Red, Ahriman, and 2 demon princes. Then he's got a battalion of Deathguard, so he's got a Sloppity Bile Piper, a Poxbringer, 2 squads of 30 Plague Bearers, and a minimum unit of 3 Nurgling bases. And then the knight here, although he looks like a noble knight of House Cadmus, is actually a renegade knight. So he's an auxiliary support auxiliary Lord of War detachment, so no extra command points for that, but it's a knight. So yeah, pretty tough force here. He's got like the resilient horde, but also really powerful big stuff that's going to be a pain to deal with. So yeah, this is a serious tournament list. For the mission tonight, we've rolled up, what did we roll up? Narrow the Search. So it's 1 objective in the centre, with a decreasing circle around it as to how close you can be to score it. So it starts at 18 inch and closes in gradually. This also has a 12-inch aura of ignoring invuln saves, so that is going to be a problem for his demons if they get too close. And the deployment type is frontline assault, so you've got long table edges but sort of pointy in the middle. So yeah, that is everything we're doing. Let's take a look at deployment. So I won the roll-off to deploy first, and so couldn't see where he was deploying. So I've just deployed front and centre in a pretty standard configuration for me. Bikes off to one side, Shining Spears in the centre taking cover, and the Dark Reapers and Dire Avengers Fire Dragons in transports where appropriate. So the Fire Dragons are in the Falcon, and both Wave Serpents have 6 Avengers and 5 Reapers in them. And then I've put the Wraithguard in tactical reserves, hoping to deep strike them down. So that's the webway strike stratagem. Hopefully, with him having a couple of big guys and having to push forward for the objective, I'll be able to hop in behind and maybe snipe Magnus or the Knight in the rear with all those D cannons or Wraith cannons. My intention in getting nice and close to my deployment zone was, because I probably had the first turn, or at least had the choice of turn, I could start putting pressure on him right from the word go, bring my shorter ranged weapons into range from the first turn, really start to do some damage before he was able to do much to me. But Craig's a smart player, he wasn't going to fall for that, so Magnus was placed right back in the corner. His Knight was on the baseline as well. And then his Plague Bearers and Demon Princes, along with Araman, were all popped behind this big building here. So I had very little line of sight on anything. He reserved his second unit of Plague Bearers, plus his Nurglings, Bile Piper, and Poxbringers. So yeah, there was not really a lot for me to shoot at first turn. So I decided to play it smart and actually go for the second turn, which would be useful for objective scoring, with objective scoring being done at the end of the second player's turn. So he had first turn. So with the first turn, he pushed up his stuff, started to push his units into range. So the Knight stepped up to get line of sight on the Falcon and make sure it was in range, while still hanging back a little bit. Magnus moved to the side, and then in the psychic phase warp timed himself into range to start hurling spells at me. And the Plague Bearers were very clever. They advanced into the objective zone, but not to within the 12 inches. So they were still scoring, or a lot of them were scoring, but weren't losing their invuln save. Moved the Demon Princes and Magnus up behind, Araman up behind them. So yeah, they were, being quite cautious there, which I think was a wise move. In the psychic phase, he stuck Miasma of Pestilence on the Plague Bearers, so -1 to hit them, and then he started to just throw spells my way. And in the psychic phase, he was able to score first strike with just the sheer number of spells that Magnus and the Demon Princes had thrown at the Falcon. He was able to wreck it first turn. Luckily, the Fire Dragons didn't take much in the way of casualties from that. But losing my Falcon first turn, a bit annoying, but it's really, the transports are there to soak the fire, so it did its job. Magnus also killed a couple of the Shining Spears with his souped up smite. And then in the shooting phase, he fired his Knight, which was his only real shooting, at my Dark Reapers. No, not my Dark Reapers. It would have been my Dire Avengers, because the Reapers are still in the transport. So I went for the Avengers, and was only able to kill 2 of them thanks to lightning fast reactions. So that was quite handy. Not a bad first turn. He's got first strike. He started to move stuff towards the objective, but as his stuff comes forward, that means it's into range for my counterattack. Against such a tough list, I was very keen to play the mission and really focus on scoring the points, because that I figured was going to be the best way to pull out a win. So I started focusing on killing the Plague Bearers, because they were the ones that were going to sit on the objective and camp it with OBSEC all game. So moved both Reaper units out of their transports. So one unit went backwards towards the baseline to line up line of sight. The other one went into the cover of the ruins. Pushed the Avengers, the big squad of Avengers, forward to get them into range, and also the Shining Spears came forward at sort of full pelt, trying to get that turn 1 charge off, which they are more than capable of doing. Also pushed up the Fire Dragons, because they've got short range, they've got no transport, they needed to get forward. Did contemplate trying to take down Magnus and the Knight, but I just didn't feel I had the right units in the right place to do it, so just focused on the Plague Bearers. Farseer was able to get Doom off on them, and he was also able to cast Fortune on the Shining Spears, which was helpful for keeping them alive, but I failed to cast Enhance on them, and I failed to cast Jinx on the Plague Bearers, both of which would have been key to making this turn more of a success. And then, yeah, just opened up with all the shooting on the Plague Bearers, you know, bright lances, pulse lasers. No, they were gone, but, you know, laser lances, shuriken catapults, shuriken cannons, serpent shields, reaper launchers, just anything to try and take down the Plague Bearers. But with such a big unit of them, and them being so hard to hit, so damn resilient, I was... You know, I did a lot, but it wasn't enough to kill them. I then charged in with the Shining Spears and was able to kill some more of them. And in the end, he only had 5 left, which meant I was able to score the point for the holding the objective, because I had more guys within 18 than he did, but wasn't able to score first strike despite focusing a whole Eldar army's worth of firepower onto one unit. He then spent 2 CP to save them, which was a good choice, because that's obviously meant that I didn't get first strike, but also, you know, keeps bodies on the table, because in this type of mission you really do need to flood the centre of the board with bodies. So not a terrible start, but could have been better. As we went into turn 2, Craig started to push forward again, so the Knight has come up towards the centre, and Magnus came over towards where the Fire Dragons were. He also brought on his reserves, so that is the extra 30 Plague Bearers, as well as the Sloppity Bile Piper, the Poxbringer, and the Nurglings. And the Plague Bearers were the key thing here. They were all brought on within range of the objective, so yeah, big scoring of points potentially coming up here. Psychic Phase, he didn't do a lot of damage, but he did manage to warp time Magnus over to where the further unit of Dark Reapers were. So yeah, it's quite clear what his plan was here. You know, use Magnus and the Knight as distractions while the Plague Bearers move in to claim the objective. Then, yeah, shooting was rather uneventful due to his lack of it, but he did manage to wipe out the centre unit of Dark Reapers, who'd already suffered some casualties, but suffered a whole lot more from the Knight, despite using lightning fast reactions to try and keep them alive. And the assault phase went pretty much how you would have expected. So the Knight charged into both units of Dire Avengers, was able to wipe out one of them, but didn't just have enough attacks to do both of them. Magnus didn't actually fare so well. He killed a few of the Dark Reapers, but not enough to wipe the squad out. There's still a couple left there, and the Demon Princes, who'd hopped over the ruins, charged into the Shining Spears, who didn't suffer too badly thanks to getting Fortune up on them last turn, but still took a bit of a hammering. And just to mention that one of the Demon Princes actually charged the Fire Dragons rather than the Shining Spears and killed a couple of them. At some point he'd also used a stratagem to bring back some of his Plague Bearers, so his army was almost at full strength as we went into turn 2. So really wanted to make an impact, take something out, because I was clearly on the back foot here. So brought down my Wraithguard, and along with a number of my other units, surrounded the Knight. So I'd obviously pulled back my surviving Avenger squad from combat, and the jet bikes, the Shining Spears pulled out, trying to get everyone nice and close to the Knight to you know, make sure we could take him out. So my Farseer put his natural leader ability onto the Wraithguard, and he also doomed the Knight, who was also jinxed by the Spirit Seer. So yeah, he was in position to get taken down, and so it was. The Wraithguard opened up, did 19 wounds to him, and then it was just up to the Shining Spears to finish him off. Rest of my shooting was largely ineffective, though. The Dark Reapers had pulled out of combat with Magnus, but obviously couldn't shoot, and yeah, all the shuriken fire and other weapons into the Plague Bearers really didn't do a lot because of their invuln saves and disgustingly resilient rule. And then to add insult to injury, I'd not pulled my Dark Reapers back enough, which meant Magnus was able to heroically intervene in my turn to wipe them out. So yeah, not Not ideal, but I did get the knight off the board. Turn 3, and Craig really starts to close the noose here. So Magnus came across my back lines with a combination of his high speed and warp time right behind where my infantry were all clustered together, and then was able to use that big spell of his, the one that blows up and does damage to multiple units, to kill a good number of models. And he also pushed up his plague bearers towards the centre of the objective along with the demon princes to really surround me, and certainly surround the centre objective. Then assault phase, Magnus was able to charge in and wipe out the last of the Wraith Guards. So yeah, they did well when they turned up, but they were too short-lived. You know, nothing's going to really survive in combat with Magnus. So that was my Wraith Guard gone, and yeah, Magnus floating around in my back lines with Plague Bearers pushing up on the objective. Started my turn 3 by moving the majority of my surviving units, so the jet bikes, the Dire Avengers and the Grav tanks and my Farseer, towards the centre of the board to try and basically survive, get away from Magnus. The Plague Bearers aren't overly threatening, they're just sort of tar pity, and get on that centre objective. Moving away from Magnus also allowed me to spread out a bit, because he can't target us all at once. Psychic phase, I managed to get off Protect and Jinx onto Jinx and Doom onto the big Plague Bearer unit, which set me up for a pretty solid shooting phase, taking out one of his demon princes with the fire dragons and doing significant damage to the large Plague Bearer unit and wiping out the survivors of the first Plague Bearer unit that arrived. So it was all going quite well until he had to take his leadership test for the Plague Bearers, where he rolled a 1, which meant that he got d6 of them back, and rolled a 5, so a whole load more Plague Bearers to deal with. And that really set up the end of the game. So in his final turn, he was able to push forward with the Plague Bearers to surround my Fire Dragons, who were nearest to the centre of the board. And obviously Magnus came in from behind and starts chucking out spells. And in the end, by the time the dust had settled, I had a single damaged Grav tank and 2 Fire Dragons who were completely surrounded by Plague Bearers. So yeah, at that point we called it, because there really wasn't anything else I could do. So nice solid win for Craig, and that is going to set him up for being in the finals of the tournament.
Okay, so that was my 6th and final game in the Iron Hammer League, and what can I say, well done to Craig. You had a really good army there. You know, the list was really good, it was very well designed, all worked very well together, and you played it very well. And that's probably a large part of why he's won all 6 of his 6 games and will progress on to the knockout stages. So yeah, well done, and good luck with that. So it's just a really tough army. You know, I was able to pull a few tricks against it, but ultimately just the resilience of the Plague Bearers combined with the hard-hitting Knight and Magnus was just too much for me to cope with. And the real thing I've noticed in this mission, or this game, but also this league in general, is that my army is really struggling to take objectives at the moment. So back in sort of the start of this edition, you could really just get away with blasting your opponent off the board and then grabbing the objectives at the end. You really can't do that anymore. The new chapter approved has really changed the way the game is played, and you need to start thinking about grabbing your objectives from turn 1, and to be honest, even from building your army. You know, I just need a lot more troops than I currently have, and a lot more resilient troops. And that makes Eldar a tougher army to play. So yeah, definitely if I'm going to be running the Eldar more, I'm going to need to adapt the list. But yeah, I've been playing them a lot, so I might give them a break and try something a little bit different up next. Or in fact, I already know I'm trying something a little bit different up next and giving them a break. So yeah, the real things I've sort of learned from this tournament, because I don't want to say, you know, it wasn't a success, even though I did lose 5 out of my 6 games. You know, it was never really under any illusions I was going to win. It was more about what I can learn from the experience and having some fun games. And I have to say, I did have 6 really fun, very different games. The majority of them against people I hadn't played before, so that's always good. So the first thing I learned is mission. Mission is where this edition is currently at, and that wasn't even meant to rhyme. But yeah, you can't just get away with blast your opponent off the table and then grab the objectives, unless your army is totally focused on doing that really early and really decisively. You know, you can't half and half. You know, most armies are really going to have to play to the mission. And like I say, even at list design. And the other thing is about being familiar with your opponents. You know, I've kind of played the same people quite a lot, and then coming into this and playing a wide variety of different opponents really, you know, made me see the shortcomings in my game and the shortcomings in my list against different tactics that I'd not faced before. But also just sheer knowing how things work, you know, just how resilient are plague bearers. The answer, no matter what you throw at them, they still seem to not die. It's yeah, you know, very. It's been a good learning experience, and certainly taken a lot away from it that will hopefully be able to up my game in future. And as for the tournament itself, the league, sorry, I think this format has worked really well. You know, you've had 30 plus guys get involved, and the vast majority of them have all been great blokes. You know, and it's all been very friendly. And I've not had one game where I've thought my opponent was being a bit of a douche. You know, they were all you know, they brought some strong lists and played hard, but they played fair, and that's great. You know, that is the sort of thing you like to see. You know, I do not mind losing to somebody who has just played well and been a nice guy about it. You know, it's when you're losing to someone who's just being a douche and quite clearly running some very dirty tactics on you, or just being unsporting, and that's annoying. And I personally didn't see any of that in this. Some people may have seen something different, but you know, I certainly didn't experience that. And just the format worked really well, because it was very much just turn up when you're going to play, grab games and record the scores. It's very easy for people who perhaps can't make every night and can maybe only make certain nights of the week and maybe have to adjust schedules. There was enough time for even those of us who couldn't get down every week to play our 6 games, and that worked really well. Now, it did mean that you know, it was possible, if you really wanted to manipulate your opponents, the opponents you play, to get a better score. You know, play against, because you're not set opponents, you know, play against guys who you know aren't very good. But to be honest, I didn't really see much of that happening, and I think the guys who have finished near the top are pretty much all there on merit. I don't think there's anyone who's been like, oh, I'll just play against these 5 chaps who I know, you know, aren't as strong, and then, you know, I'll pick up 5 easy wins. It's been more of a kind of people, the good players have been pushing themselves by trying to play other strong opponents, and then playing against me as well. 3 of the guys I played against ended up in the top 6. Craig, who obviously topped the league, Will, the other Deathguard player, made top 4. I think Sam was 6th as well, with 4 wins, a loss and a draw. So yeah, well done to all those lads, and a big thank you to Craig and Lee for organising this. It's been really good fun. I think the knockout stages haven't quite been played yet. Basically, first plays 4th, second plays 3rd, and then the winner of those 2 games play off for the final. So good luck to everybody in that. And yeah, thanks a lot to everyone who's come with me on this journey, as it were. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.